Good afternoon. This is Boston City Councilor Ed Flynn. I'm Chair of City and Neighborhood Services. Thank you for attending this hearing today. We have a hearing on docket number 0117. Message in order authorizing the City of Boston to accept and expend the amount of $80,000 in the form of a grant for the FY21 Sustainable Materials Recovery Program Recycled, awarded by the Mass Department of Environmental Protection and to be administered by the City of Boston Public Works Department. We are here this afternoon with Brian Coughlin from Public Works Sanitary Division. Thank you, Brian, for being with us. This is being broadcast on boston.gov/citycouncil.-tv, be rebroadcast on Xfinity Channel 8, RCN Channel 82, Fios 964. The Zoom link to provide public testimony for the hearing can be found by emailing juan.lopez@boston.gov. Please make sure that your Zoom handle is your full name. When you're called, please state your name and affiliation, residence. If you are unable to provide testimony today, you can also submit written testimony or a video. A video can be sent directly to ccc.cns@boston.gov. I will first let my City Council colleagues speak, offer opening statements, and I'll ask Brian Coughlin from the City of Boston Public Works to speak after that. We'll also have a round of Q&A, and I'll also ask the public if they would also like to testify as well. I want to say thank you to Juan and Kerry from the City Council Central Staff for your dedicated and professional work as well. With that, I'm going to hold off on opening statements at this time, including my own, and I want to take it right to Brian Coughlin from the City of Boston Public Works. Brian, thank you for being with us. Tell us about this grant and give us a little bit of background information on it, please.
Sure. Good afternoon, Chairman Flynn. Thanks for hosting this very important hearing today. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can hear you fine, Brian. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you for hosting this hearing today, Chairman, regarding the grant awarded to the City of Boston by the Mass DEP in the amount of $80,000. This grant was applied for by the Public Works Department under Mass DEP's Recycling Dividends Program, which is an annual program that began in 2014 to help municipalities fund specific waste reduction efforts. These funds are only awarded to qualifying municipalities throughout the Commonwealth that offer specific waste reduction programs to the residents. This grant is structured as a point-based award designed to increase as an applicant exceeds the threshold necessary for all categories set forth by the Mass DEP. This 2020 award is the second consecutive year in which the City of Boston has submitted and received recycling dividends funds from the Mass DEP. We are proud to have been awarded this grant for a second time, showing that we are dedicated to our waste reduction programs in the City of Boston. And we are focused on implementing new programs and services that will expand across all neighborhoods in our great city. As you're aware, in June of 2019, the city, under the leadership of former Mayor Martin J. Walsh, announced a zero waste plan for the City of Boston. This plan was developed over the course of many months with collaboration between stakeholders of all sectors, both public and private. The final set of recommendations in the plan highlight necessary steps to achieve zero waste as a city and sets targets in both the near and long term. These goals are bold, ambitious, and in every way a representation of the abilities and the character of our city to take on a challenge and lead the way for other municipalities and states across the country. This grant, if approved, will help fund zero waste initiatives outlined in our plan. As we look ahead to 2035 and reaching a goal of 80% diversion as a city, the steps we take today will give us an opportunity tomorrow and beyond. My colleagues and I are eager to continue our work under the new leadership of Mayor Kim Janey and her administration. And we ask that this body accept and approve this grant so we can take one more step towards becoming a zero waste city and a global leader in waste reduction. Thank you.
Thank you, Brian. Thank you for your testimony. Thank you for your work on this important issue. Brian, this is the second year your office has received it. Is that accurate?
That's correct. Yep, we weren't eligible for any funding. So you have to hit a minimum criteria to qualify.
Just give us a little bit of background, Brian. When you received the funding last year, tell me exactly what happened with the funding. How did it benefit the residents of the city?
Yeah, so due to obviously the COVID pandemic going on and a little bit of delays with the grant money getting allocated to the budget, we actually just purchased bins that are going to help us expand Project Oscar, our food compost program. So residential drop-off food waste program. So we're going to be expanding that hopefully in the spring, early summer of this year.
Brian, what type of public awareness, public education campaign does the Public Works, the work you guys are doing is very important. Tell me about the public awareness, public education campaign you guys have with the residents of the city about the importance of this program or recycling in general.
Yeah, so great question. Thank you. So we have the Public Works Twitter handle obviously pushes out as much information as possible. We do have a mobile app where residents can download on their phones or smartphones, which will send them alerts, notifications about all our programs. And it also pushes out any special things that are going on, any yard waste weeks that are coming up, any service cancellation, delays, anything like that. And we work closely with our other partners with ONS, try to get the message out to each neighborhood. And then obviously we use local papers as well and all the communication that we can get out there. And we're also mailing out a calendar soon to all your constituents in South Boston and downtown for the yard waste calendar, which will have our 2021 event schedule on there as well.
Thank you, Brian. And the great thing about having these hearings, I love to use this as an opportunity to inform the public, and that's exactly what you're doing here this afternoon. So thank you, Brian. Brian, tell us composting, for those that don't know about it, tell us just the general background of residential composting. Tell us how it works and tell us how it benefits the city of Boston and the neighborhoods.
Yeah. So to summarize it, basically the food scraps from the residents that go to the drop-off program will end up into turn it into compost with our yard waste and a mixture. So it eventually will go back to the public gardens and community gardens. So essentially there's a closed loop process there where we collect yard waste and food waste. And then in the spring, the community gardens in the city, as well as the Parks Department will get compost. For the Love Your Block, for instance, we give compost and mulch and stuff like that with the program, and the food waste helps with that as well. So it's all being diverted out of our trash and our waste stream, which is saving on the disposal costs, which are rising. And it's obviously a much greener thing to do. So it's part of our mission going forward.
Thank you, Brian. Kerry or Warren, could you let Councilor Braden into the hearing? I know there's some technical issues, but if we could let Councilor Braden in, please. Hi, Councilor Braden. It's good to see you.
Good to see you also.
Thank you. Well, thank you for that answer, Brian. And just as a follow-up on your answer, are residents engaged in composting? Do they understand the importance of it? Do they understand the impact it has on the environment and maybe the economy as well? But it sounds like a great program. I just want to make sure that, we're able to do a public awareness campaign to residents that may not have traditionally been focused on composting in the past. So wonder what your thoughts might be on that.
Yes, that's a great question. And to answer your question, Counselor, the outreach and the education that's needed is partially of what's going to happen with this grant if it's approved. There's a huge effort that's needed on our end to get the messages out on what's the right way to do things and how you compost. And that's why we started with the small Project Oscar pilot. And then as we go along in the zero waste plan, we can ramp up to a bigger program. We're still recycling after a couple of decades, and it's still tough to get the message across what's recyclable, what's not, as things are constantly changing. It's very difficult to get that message out there. So we want to make sure that we have a strategy in place as we line up the next phases of compost.
Excellent, excellent. With us is City Councilor Liz Braden. Councilor Braden, would you like to offer opening statements or questions to Brian Coughlin from the Public Works Department?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm in to just learn about this grant and about the work of the recycling program. I'm an avid recycler and composter in our backyard composters. So I think this is really, really important work to get this this waste out of our trash bins and have it recycled and repurposed in other ways. So one question I had was for community gardens in the city, is there a deadline for asking for for having compost delivered to them?
That's actually that's a great question, because the online order form will be going on the website shortly. And then they typically have until the beginning of May to get their requests in. And their deliveries are handled basically in order and as efficient as we can get them out. But the compost is ready to go. Sure.
Good, that's good to know. So the online, is it the DPW website, or what's the
last year I believe it was on the Environment Department.
Okay.
I think it would make sense to have it in a few different places so it's accessible to everybody and not having people trying to search for it and not know where it is. I'll work with the team and do it to see if we can get something on the homepage. Seems how it's up and coming soon, and it'll be a popular request coming up.
Excellent. I know I had a community garden miss the deadline last year. It was rather stressful for everybody concerned. So the Project Oscar, how many sites do you have for Project Oscar now?
There's 5 right now, and with the grant that the body had approved last week, we purchased another 12 bins. So we're working with some folks at City Hall and different agencies within the city on the best approach on how to expand that to utilize those bins to cover the entire city, so we can have access for all residents with this program. So it's not just confined to certain locations, it'll be spread out a little more.
And on a slightly different note, are we piloting a curbside pickup in any of our neighborhoods at the moment?
Not at the moment, no, it's in the works. It's certainly something that's on our radar. I think that a lot of residents have called and are really interested in the curbside model. There's a lot of detail behind that, and there's a lot of financials that we have to make sure that we're doing the right thing instead of giving everybody a bin or just saying let's do it. Like, as I just mentioned, with the recycling being curbside for over 20 years in the city, we struggle today trying to get things done properly, and the message is so confusing to a lot of people. So it's on us to get the messages out in multiple languages and get an outreach team into the neighborhoods. We can do Zooms and we can have flyers posted, but if we're not getting into the neighborhoods, into the meetings, getting back in person, talking to people, explaining things and educating, we're going to set ourselves up for failure. So we don't want to just push a program to have one. We want to make sure we have a sustainable one and one that's successful and we can build on.
Yeah.
So it's going to take some time, but it's definitely part of our plan.
And are you working with Boston Public Schools to educate the next generation? And I think they're maybe ahead of some of us older folks when it comes to recycling and that. Are we working with the schools to cultivate those good habits?
Yeah, the schools have their own recycling coordinator and they handle their own trash and recycling. We certainly collaborate with them a lot on what's going on and different messages to get out. But as far as a composting program, it'd be great to see a food waste program or something in the cafeteria someday. Styrofoam in the cafeterias, things like of that nature that can really, turn into something at home. And then they can even help us educate their parents and families and friends.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking.
Yeah.
Very good. Well, thank you so much. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Councilor Braden. And just following up on Councilor Braden's comments, Brian, I would like to have, maybe sometime this summer, have a hearing just on exactly what composting does, how it benefits the city, how it benefits the residents, but use it as a public awareness outreach campaign so residents know exactly the importance of composting, because as Councilor Braden mentioned, I think our younger people in the city know more about it than the older people, such as myself. So it's always a good opportunity to reach as many people as we can. But I think having maybe a public hearing sometime this summer on composting, the importance of composting in our city, I think would benefit the residents of Boston. So I'll stay in contact with you, Brian. I'll stay in contact, obviously, with my colleague, Councilor Braden. And I don't believe, well, let me check. Juan or Kerry, are there any public comments or public testimony?
It appears that we do not have any.
Okay. Okay, Juan. Thank you, Juan, and thank you to Kerry. Brian, do you have any closing comments that you want to leave us with?
I just wanted to thank Mr. Chairman here. I want to thank you for bringing this to the body, because this grant is really important. The amount of the grant isn't substantial, but the outreach and education that can come behind it, as you mentioned, that it can be a driving force behind the work that we do. And I think particularly in the areas that have trouble understanding the booklets and the instructions on how to do things, I think having our guides put in multiple languages, as we have on our website, and our mobile app that you can download is now in 7 languages. So I think there's a need to push that message out to people that we already have the existing outreach there. It's just getting it out to them. And like I said, once we can get back into the neighborhoods and really meet with people, and everybody can work together and spread the word of what we're doing, I think as far as zero waste in the city, it's a very ambitious goal, but it's one that we can attain if we work together and everybody's on the same mission.
Thank you, Brian. Thank you, Brian. We're also joined by our colleague, Councilor Mejia, at-large city councilor. Councilor Mejia, do you have any comments that you would like to make at this time?
I'm sorry, Councilor Flynn, for being late. I will review the tape, but I'm sorry for my tardiness. I see you're almost wrapping up.
Thank you, Councilor Mejia. Councilor Mejia and Councilor Braden, just want to, Councilor Mejia, we were talking about the composting and recycling, and I was talking to Brian from Public Works and with Councilor Braden. Maybe this summer we might have a city council hearing on the importance of composting and recycling. So certainly would like to include Councilor Braden and Councilor Mejia, and we could kind of have a public awareness campaign. And I would love to invite you guys to be original co-sponsors, but if you guys are up for that. But yeah. Having said that,
my internet is really bad, so I don't know if you can hear me. If you were able to hear me, I was going to ask one quick question.
Yes, go ahead, Councilor Mejia, no problem. Yeah.
So yes, Councilor Flynn would love to work with you on the compost hearing if you move forward with it. I'm particularly interested. I heard the tail end in terms of the language interpretation and how important it is. And especially when it comes to composting, I think a lot of there's a misconception that a lot of folks don't know or understand what composting is. But in fact, a lot of immigrants in their homeland, this is what they used to do anyways. So I think as we continue to think about the communication from a culturally competent lens, it's just kind of help connecting those dots to see that what you did back in the homeland is very similar to what can be done here, and how do we communicate that in a way that they can see the connection, because I think that that has been my biggest learning in the composting world. It's like, oh, we used to do that back in the Dominican Republic, and that's what it looked like then. So I think language access and interpretation and translation and the content to be reflected of that would also help.
Sure.
Thank you.
Thank you, Council Mejia. Very good points. Councilor Braden, any final comments before we log off?
Just one quick question. What's the name of the app that I should use, Brian?
If you search Boston trash,
Yeah,
there's a blue icon with a blue barrel.
got it.
So you
That's
click
it.
on that. And Councilor Flynn, I can reach out to somebody in your staff if you'd like, and send the copy of the digital zero waste plan. I think there's a lot of members of the body that were not members of the body when this plan was introduced. There's about 30 recommendations going from very small outreach plans all the way to massive infrastructure ideas and things that we can work on as a city to hit these goals. And these goals of 80% diversion for 2035 is sneaking up on us. So we need to really get moving and put this in the forefront. I know there's a lot of important issues at hand right now in this world, especially right today. But if we don't think about the trash and the costs of the disposal and not recycling and not doing these extra programs, the textile program that we're doing now, there's other things we're working on. If we continue to just leave things the way we are, we're going to be cutting services for other things across the city to pay for trash. So we need to really think as one city on how we attack this problem of all the waste in the city. So
well, thank you, Brian. Thank you, Councilor Mejia and Councilor Braden, and Brian, you and your team at Public Works for the outstanding work you're doing. And composting and recycling, everybody can participate in it, and everyone can make a difference. And everybody making a very, very small difference will have a major impact across the city.
Mhm.
So again, just want to say thank you to the Public Works. Go ahead, Councilor Mejia.
So, Council Flynn probably already asked you this, and if he didn't, it would not be a public hearing unless it's asked. So I'm just curious, do you have enough staffing and enough money in the budget to cover your team around all of these issues? Because we want to make sure that you all have the resources and support that you need.
right now, yes. As we start expanding programs, and like I said, once the city opens up and then we can really get into these neighborhoods and have civic association meetings and coffee hours and all that stuff, anybody that's willing to help us get these messages out, we have the flyers, we can print things, we have the money to get the education outreach out there. We need people with similar interests that want to achieve zero waste in the city. So if you have constituents that are really, into recycling or, community engagement that want to get involved and want to bring back these messages, we can't have one message and deliver it to everyone and they're not going to get it. We need people from the communities talking to people from their community on how to do things right, so we can work together and get to where we want to be in a couple of decades or so, So
Happy to join you in that effort. Sorry, Councilor Flynn, I'm being disruptive here.
That's no problem at all. That's no problem. So I'm going to recommend to my colleagues that we vote and pass the $80,000. So your dedicated team, Brian, can continue the great work that you're doing on behalf of the residents. So again, thank you for spending some time with us today. And let your team know that we appreciate the work they're doing on behalf of the residents of the city. Having said that, this meeting is now adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.